Chris Lewis ending Kim's report there. Well, let's go to the Economic Development Minister. Good morning to you, Mr Joyce.
Morning, Corin. How are you?
You would have heard some of those stories, some pretty grim stuff there, talk of suicides, drastic impact. What can you offer to those people in those situations on those farms who are doing it really tough?
Well, the first is a sudden and big drop in income for most dairy farmers, well, in fact, all dairy farmers. And it is having an impact, there's no doubt about that. A lot of them have strong balance sheets. They've had some good years, and that will help them through because they've got very good equity, but there'll be others who have low levels of equity, and also it's a bit harder for share milkers as well because they're not getting the same level of support from the co-op as the other farmers.
So what can you do for them?
Well, we've got quite a lot of support going on through the Rural Support Trust, the things that Nathan Guy and Jonathan Coleman have set up for farmers, and we have the ability to do more if that's required. There's assistance that Dairy NZ's supplying. And there's lots of community support to get them through, and I would just counsel that if anybody's in that sort of difficulty, that they should just put their hand up and talk to people. Nathan Guy was telling me he went around the banks on Thursday. They are on the whole supportive, and he doesn't feel there's going to be a sudden rush to the exit.
They have to be, don't they? Because it's $34 billion worth of dairy debt. Is dairy too big to fail in this country?
Well, I think dairy is very significant. It's 20% of our exports. It's about 4 or 5% of our economy. It's, as has been pointed out there, it's very important in a number of provincial centres, Taranaki, Waikato, Southland, so on. So it is very important.
Too big to fail?
Well, I don't think, but the simple reality is it won't fail over time. I mean, what we're dealing with is a sudden price drop, which has caught a lot of people by surprise. But actually, the long-term prognosis for our food into the fast...
Why should we believe that, though? Because a year or two ago, people were talking about this $8.40 payout. There was no one saw this coming. Fonterra didn't see it coming. You didn't see it coming. There's great uncertainty. Why would you, if you were 25, thinking about going into the dairy industry? Why would you?
Actually, there's a lot of things in life that that people don't see coming. I mean, the kiwi fruit industry before PSA, for example, nobody knew that was coming. All industries suffer shocks from time to time, and it's the nature of being in business. And actually, all businesses have periods of time where they don't make money. I was in business 20 years before I went into politics. I can remember years where we didn't make money because there were shocks.
Sure, but the claim is from your opponents that you ramped things up towards dairy in the good times and then over-egged it.
Yeah, but the greatest respect, that's political caricature. That's all that is. The government didn't ramp up dairy.
But it has left us very exposed.
No, the government didn't ramp up dairy. The government has set the settings that allows a lot of industries to flourish. Well, and dairy is one of them.
You've put money into irrigation, encourage production.
Well, in what way? I mean, the reality is what encourages production is global prices. And global prices have been strong. They're suddenly weak. They will strengthen again.
Because the Prime Minister's been to China 2 or 3 times in the last few years. He's gone there. Whenever there's any problem with milk, any suggestion that there might be a damage to our milk supply.
We do the same with other industries as well.
Has been on the huge money we're making from China.
No, but actually China has been hugely helpful to New Zealand through that whole GFC period. And the New Zealand economy is way stronger than it was 5 years ago. So let's go through it. We've got much lower international debt than we had 5 years ago. Our balance of payments to the rest of the world is in a stronger position. Households have been saving a lot more. The government's fiscal position is much better shape. So we're actually, as an economy, much more resilient than we were 5 years ago. And also we're in a situation where the world economy is still growing. Now, I went back and had a look at the previous 4 recessions in New Zealand and said, what's the difference between those and this situation that we're in today? And the reality is the world economy is still growing 3 or 4%.
Hang on a second. So you're saying...
It's not a recession, and I'm saying we'll have a slowdown in growth, but I went and had a look just to check because there's all this sort of rhetoric about how it's the end of the world.
This is interesting because all your rhetoric, the government's rhetoric for the last week or so has been, don't panic, there's nothing, wrong here.
This is my point.
And you're saying you are going away and having a look to see, are we going to cope?
Well, no, you're paraphrasing now and incorrectly. What I said was we check all the information that we come on an ongoing basis, and what I'm telling you is the situation we've got here is a sudden correction in our largest commodity price. The economy is responding. We've got lower exchange rate pretty much straight away. It's off 25% against the US dollar over a year. We've got lower interest rates with the Reserve Bank, and that's coming through. And in the meantime, our other export sectors, and we have to be careful because there's a danger that you over-concentrate on one, are doing very, very well.
And they are, no, I'll give you that. But the point is that going to be enough to stop New Zealand having a technical recession in the next 2 quarters?
I believe so, yes. Unless we've got another external shock that isn't there at the moment, and there's lots of fragility in the world. But right now, as we sit here today, New Zealand will have a slowdown in economic growth,
but no
around
recession.
the 2.5% mark, and no recession, unless somebody across the world falls completely out of bed. And that's always a risk.
What about unemployment? Unemployment has risen in the last quarter. Do you expect it to keep rising?
Well, actually, job growth has continued to rise.
I want to know about the job. 148,000 people out of work in this country.
Well, actually, and one of the best results in the OECD.
Fine, but that's not much comfort for the 148,000 people out of work.
There's also plenty of jobs in the economy, not necessarily in the right places for the people looking for work, I understand that. But actually, I think we'll see a reasonably flat period, which is what we have been seeing for the last couple of quarters. It'll stay around the high fives.
Can you rule out, I mean...
If you look at all the, aside from the BNZ, if you look at all the estimates of New Zealand unemployment about 2 to 3 years out, it's around low fives. And that's the consensus
so you
at the
seriously
moment.
Think unemployment's going to get back down to low fives? Because Westpac this week came out and said it was going to go to 6.5%. We're talking, that's thousands
but with the greatest
more people unemployed.
And prior to as the GFC started, they were all talking about 11. We got nowhere near that. Look, there's some commentators out there who have to write sort of big stories to get some coverage in the newspaper, and that's the way it works. But the reality is New Zealand is in a far better shape than it was 5 years ago. We're actually been one of the strongest performing economies in the OECD, and it doesn't suddenly stop even with a significant decline in dairy prices. Now, that's a concern, absolutely, but you are seeing the automatic stabilisers come into play in terms of the exchange rate. And so there's a whole bunch of companies, ICT, Hi-Tech, Kiwi Fruit, Wine, all suddenly getting significant price increases, and they're not changing their input costs or anything like that. So it will bring different...
Is there a point when growth drops to a level where you do have to step in with some regional infrastructure plans, bring forward some roads, bridges, that...
But we're doing exactly that. So that's the irony of that. That's exactly what we are doing. So one of the biggest infrastructure builds that will occur in small-town provincial New Zealand is going to occur over the next 3 years with the extension of ultra-fast broadband to towns like Stratford and Hawera has Stratford, Eltham, Inglewood, Waitara and Taranaki, in the west coast to Westport and Hokitika. All those smaller towns will have, as I say, the biggest infrastructure build that they've had.
Sure, but that's been planned for years. I'm talking about extra stimulus, because here's the point.
But you're asking when does these things hit?
But the point is, why should we allow an increase in unemployment when we have the capacity to increase spending to stop that? Why would you let the unemployment rate go up?
If we had to increase spending, we have the ability to do that, because you know and I know that we're due to make a surplus this year or the next. In 2017, there's a significant extra spend available to the government that's required, which we can bring forward. These things are all able to be dealt with. So the
surplus you could ditch the surplus target, couldn't you? You could say it's not so important now, is it? Given the
you've got to be very careful, because one of the reasons our interest rates with the world are staying low is because we have a strong fiscal position. So there's no costless decisions here, Corin. It's not like, and as the Australians found out actually, because when they went into the GFC, decided to spend like there was no tomorrow, Kevin Rudd, and now look at the situation that they're in. So it's not costless. You have to make a judgment each time. But what I'm telling you is, A, that we're spending a lot in those regions with road...
And you'll spend more if you need to.
If you needed to, you'd spend more. But as I say, we sit here today, the economy is looking at around the 2.5% growth, which is coming back, and in particular areas it will be felt.
And West Coast, of course, is the big one for you. Solid Energy, that region is in a world of trouble, isn't it? Because dairy is its other big earner, it's not doing so well.
No, that's not quite true. I was talking to Tony Cockshawn and Gary Howard the other day. So Tony Cockshawn, Mayor of the Grey District. Tony's feeling pretty positive overall. As he said to me, he says when he got to be the mayor, I think it was about 12 or 15 years ago, he said, if you told them that they weren't going to be dependent on the coal industry one day, he said, I wouldn't have believed you. But he says, actually, right now, the Grey District's got about 60 miners in the district. So Grey's going all right. Hokatika's been going okay. In the case of Westland Dairy, they're just finishing a $120 million investment in high-value nutritionals, which is going to turn about a third of their business.
Are you going to do anything extra for them in light of Solid Energy?
Well, I'm just telling you, the district that's affected is the Buller district, which is Gary Howard's one. And yes, that's been tough. And it's not just Solid Energy, actually. actually. It's Wholesome and also
Sure.
the gold miners. So we're on the phone with Gary. I've had meetings with him. We've got a list of things that he and I are working on, attracting new investment opportunities to the Buller region. He wants to be on that broadband and has put forward a very good case for Westport to be there. He's also got the tourism initiatives.
Sure.
We're helping them finish the old Ghost Road.
Is it going to be money? Is it going to be tax incentives? What's the bottom line here? How are you actually going to get people to invest in that region?
Well, it's two things actually. One is that it's making sure the infrastructure and everything is done, and secondly is actually a matching of the opportunities with the investors. We've got a lot of people that are very interested in investing in New Zealand.
Sure.
And we've got to match them with the opportunities. It's not about just sort of shifting people and saying, oh, we'll make opportunities. There are good opportunities in each region of New Zealand, and it's about endorsing those opportunities, costing them out, and presenting them to overseas investors, for example, who are very keen to invest but are not necessarily aware of the opportunities.
Just on that point, finally, are you comfortable then with, because Labour's seems to be making a distinction between investment in land and investment in business. Do you have a distinction? Do we need to watch out for increased investment in our dairy land, given it's going to be under pressure?
With the greatest respect, I think Labor are all over the park on investment as they are in other things. They claim to be interested in the regions. Yesterday there was a Trans-Pacific Partnership protest. There were 7 or more senior Labor MPs out around the country protesting against the TPP, which, if it comes to pass, will be one of the biggest positives for regional New Zealand and the primary sectors. And that's the hypocrisy that you've got at the Labor Party at the moment.
Well,
and on the one hand, they're saying, oh, you've got to support the regions, but we don't want any investment there. We certainly don't want free trade.
Well, they do want investment. They're just saying they don't want it in
They
dairy
just want
land.
investment that they can hide from people.
I just want a quick answer. Are we going to, if we face a big dairy slump, which it looks like we're going to, will you step in to stop prime New Zealand dairy land from being sold to foreigners?
Well, again, with the greatest respect, that's a canard, because the simple reality of the dairy price is down, you'll have difficulty attracting overseas investors into dairy land, even if you wanted to. I was talking to some Chinese investors earlier this year, and they're now into the tourism industry because they see that as the big opportunity for the next few years. So this whole Labor and Winston Peters constructed fear of massive amounts of foreign investment in the dairy industry. The reality is that with the price down, everybody looks twice before they invest in dairy, and that includes international investors.
Stephen Joyce, we have to leave it there, but thank you very much for your time.